This is Synopsis, a series of conversations with composers on their compositional practices in the framework of Abeceda Institute. I'm Neža Zupanc, and today's guest is Marco Wedel, Dr. Marco Wedel. Marco, thank you for taking your time, and I would like to invite you to start with a short introduction of yourself.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for having me. Who am I? Yeah, I'm Marco. I live in Berlin. I'm a composer, musician, scientist, humanities scholar, I would say. So my life revolves around two things, basically trying to understand society from a scientific perspective, focusing on the subject of right now artificial intelligence in the context of education and democracy a little bit. So this subject, so it's technology and humanity, if you will. And then the other thing is music and composing music in particular. That's my main focus, and also like trying to, in a transdisciplinary approach, really combining these two things. That has become a bit of my life goal. There has been these two paths in life, the talking about and reflecting upon society and the philosophy, and trying to understand what makes the world go round, if you will, on the one hand, and on the other hand, this urge to live through, with, and in music as a means to also make sense of the world ultimately. That's me. Living in Berlin, trying to make sense of it all.
And how did you start with music? You're also a pianist, right? How did you get to that, and how did you get to composition?
Right. So yeah, it's, I think, the typical early on how do you say child education, at least in Germany, when you are like 4, 5, 6 years old, you have, or in the kindergarten even, you start with music education. And I early on had piano lessons from 5 or 6 years on, and then church and choirs and on all this stuff, and it was, for me, this is interesting because I found, and this is almost for me sometimes tragic, but also okay, I found composition so late, but that's also the first thing that was there. The first thing I did was to compose music. As any child, you have a keyboard and you make melodies out of it, right? And I remember even in elementary school, I had a little piece I composed, like you find your triads and then you just do something. I had a little presentation. So this idea of making up music, and this has been in my musical education always what was the talent, but also the problem, because I never, understood the second part of making music, which is, discipline and rehearsing. And I had really difficulties at reading scores and notes, and I was really scared of this also because I wouldn't really understand it. And so quite quickly, my second piano teacher from Hungary, who's one of those people that just, plays any instrument. He's a saxophonist, clarinetist, played, the piano, and he brought me to jazz. He understood that I have a sense to improvise, and he thought, well, maybe it's not Mozart and Bach, but maybe it's improvisation. So when I was 7 years, 8 years, he put the real book in front of me and explained to me, how chords work and stuff. And he had a little big band. And in the big band, as always, there was no bass player, so he had a synth and had me play the bass on the synth, but it was great education because I understood, there's the root and now, all these things. And then, so and I came quite some way with this, improvising, but of course, you don't get necessarily better on the instrument if you don't practice it. So I was just noodling a lot and making up songs and had my own bands and this stuff. And then I thought, well, maybe if I changed the instrument, and I don't have to use 10 fingers, which seems utterly complicated, but I just use an instrument that just has one note, and I can concentrate on that. Must be really super easy. So I started with saxophone playing. And then at the beginning, that was cool because it was,
but saxophone is also 10 fingers.
Well, with 10, but you cannot, you only, you can focus on, utilizing one note instead of chords and stuff. That was my thinking.
Less harmonic. Okay, yeah.
Less harmonic, exactly. Yeah. Awesome. So, and that was cool, you know. Then I played in a big band, and you have the saxophone. That was nice, but also, and you know, you don't get anywhere. So if you don't practice, and then I thought, I have another brilliant idea. Now I'm going to be a singer because you have the voice in your body. You know, you still don't need to, and that's easy. So I started to sing, which was in itself good because I had the choir, and then you have the piano, and you have the saxophone. You can sing. And then in Germany, as a boy, to sing and do a bit of Scooby Dooby Doo in jazz, I mean that works, right? Because there is no one else that does it. So you get the impression that this actually gets you somewhere. And you know, I'm being a bit funny about it. You know, I was serious about it. But and then you know, with that came then the musicals and the revues and the theater and all that thing. So there was a huge, and then there is these schools where you can go in order to prepare for music college, you know, where you get all the ear training and stuff. So I had a like, you know, proper, you know, like my life was that, you know, music, music, music. But also then, on the other hand, when you're young, this more like social engagement, you know, you want to change the world, you want to make the world a better place, and sustainability and climate change and all that things. And then I had these two things in me really. But I didn't at this time had any idea about composition, and in fact I didn't know, which sounds stupid, but I really didn't, that this is an option at all. Like that you know, I didn't understand that music could be more than performance. You know, and I also didn't have any real introduction to classical music. I was just, you know, listening to jazz at the time, and whatever you have, and I had access to this because I was with the jazz people, but I didn't listen to classical music, and no one took me. So I actually studied then jazz vocals, and which, you know, today I think I was very close to where I wanted to be, but yet so far away, because ultimately I know now this is, you know, I, you know, want to compose music. I know now, but I didn't know that this is an option. So, and this is when I decided, like it was okay, but you know, this is not me. I want to find out something else. And this is when I decided to also have this political science studies to get an understanding of the world. And my idea was, okay, I bring this knowledge back to the arts. So there was this, which I think I understand now, this urge also to, if it makes any sense, to be more on the creative part of it. Like to, you know, this might sound arrogant, but it's true for all of us. I think maybe I thought, or still do, I have something to say and I wanted to say it. But I didn't know how. And I didn't, and for me, there was no medium in the music world to translate this to. And this was a combination of I didn't know and I didn't believe I could do this in a way. You know, like here I was like the improviser, you know, who couldn't really read notes and stuff. And I think, how could I possibly, you know, write music? That's absurd, because obviously you have to deal with notes and, you know, so.
Those are different people that do that.
Right, exactly. These are, you know, exactly. And just without the access to it. And so anyway, so I left this and didn't really know that this was a possibility at all. And then only like later in life, like really later, like this is, let's say, not even 10 years ago, I almost accidentally, it happened. A good friend of mine, because I had this still in me, and you know how it is if you feel you belong, like really intensely, but you don't know how. Like you sense there's a huge, like there's like an emotional cocktail which is so overwhelming when there is music and when you are in this environment, and you feel like, you know, I'm right here, but you don't know how you fit in there. You cannot, you know, you don't have arms to express this, you know, in a way, out of, you know, anyway. And so accidentally, more or less, a friend of mine introduced me, because he was part of a masterclass in photography, and there was this professor for composition, Michael Matthews from Canada, who lived in Berlin at the time, and he said, well, you two should talk, just, and I just said to him, okay, listen, I'm interested in composition because I had, a jazz trio, and I thought it could be nice to have some strings and whatever, let's talk. Maybe you can help me. And then we started this, private masterclass teaching, if you will, for, all during Corona. And it's still going on, where he basically opened this whole world of composition. And since he's been a professor of composition, he really did it in a perfect way, because obviously he knew his craft, and then it was very like this Anglo-Saxon American approach to it, where it doesn't matter who what you represent, but it's really just important who you are, like really like inclusive from the beginning, without making me shy about it in a way. That was quite beautiful. So, and in the meantime, and then I realized, oh my God, what I've been doing all along in musical terms has been, in a way, composing. Like, if you could argue, like, when you improvise, that's some real-time composition of sorts. You listen, you come up with melodies, you do this, like, aha. So this is why, I couldn't, I'm not a performer. I know this now. If I would never call me like I'm a pianist, but not like I play my music and my music only, I would dare to go on stage with, and that's my very limited like piano, which is very different from my compositions for other instruments, that I would do on stage, or maybe but never like say, well, I'm a pianist, give me any piece, I will play it, or even just name me a standard and I will play it. I would never. And then in the meantime, in my 20s, like in Berlin, which is also an El Dorado, of course, for classical music, I've been introduced to listen to classical music, like, and so cliche, but the first thing through a friend listening to the Goldberg variations, and this was, I think, maybe even Andras Schiff playing it, and you think, what the fuck, and then you, it's really good. And then you listen to the yes, but it is. And then you listen to the Glenn Gould recordings, and you listen to, and then you go to Berlin, and you listen to the Berlin Philharmonic. And I remember like my first Mahler symphony. It was the third. And Zubin Mehta was conducting, and you have this adagio, which is, and it was just, it was like, I was like, oh my God, like why did I not know about this before? Like, how is this not, wow. And this was one of those concerts that you never forget, which happens so rarely. So Mahler third, it's the end, like this adagio, the last movement, and there's 2,000 people in the Berlin Philharmonic, and the piece is over, and it's dead quiet. This is what you always want. It's no one is like this, and it goes on for an eternity. No one moves. Everyone's just like almost like in shock, because it was what just happened there. And then after this is over, like in the Philharmonic, I have a lot of old people there too, like screaming as if someone just goaled the soccer goal for the world championship. Like everyone was like ecstatic, like people were just like really crazy. And I remember that, and maybe in retrospect my mind just makes it more extreme than it really was. But when I think, oh my God, really, really good. And this is, when I almost stopped listening to jazz, for example, and when I put, in front of myself, really what I never did, for example, the Bach variations, or the partitas, or the French suites, and just started to play this like every day. And and then something happened which I didn't have the experience with, at least not in that realm. That's more in the scientific realm. And then something happens which is probably obvious to you, but if you do something regularly, you get better at it. So this idea that, oh, you can actually, it's not an exclusive world to the lucky few, but it's actually the result of work and discipline. You can achieve things. Of course you need an idea and talent and all these things, but and I thought this basically wasn't available to me, and then I thought, it actually is available to me, and so then everything came together, and the world of composition unfolded also slowly, still slowly, still the beginning, but and for me, it's it was like, oh God, finally, because I was really scared. It's a bit like coming home in a way, or this is exaggeration, but when you feel like, oh, okay, thanks God, it's not just all in my head, or it's all, not just an idea or so. It's like, finally, I have a place, and that's the first time in my life that I can say it. I have a place in music, which I also like slowly but surely claim self-consciously, and which becomes part of my identity more. And I think this is actually a way to go, and this is a way I want to go. So this is the very long answer to this question, how I've found composition. And so music has always been there, but it's been a long way, and I find it's been tricky to find it. And yeah, I think now I'm on a good path in a way.
And now to today, skipping to today, and anyway, this is a great insight. Also, how you got there. How do you today see your compositional practice? You've just mentioned how you can improve in something with regular work. Maybe to that, how you do that, how you are building, or simply for us to go to the point, what is it that you would like to put in the center when it comes to composition practice for you? What are the important things there?
I think when it comes to practice, it's just the very banal thing is just regularity and also discipline. I think that's something I also learned from the PhD. I think this is how I learned actually that you can build things, because you have to come up with, like 400 pages or so, and it seems like a mountain that you cannot really climb. And
you wrote 400 pages for your PhD.
Yeah, 400, 450, something like that. But here's the trick. If you work on it, like the year has, 365 days. If you write, let's say, a page every day, then you have in 1 year, you have those pages. And this is how I approached it. And you have more than 1 year, obviously. And so my thing was, okay, I do this Monday through Friday, the weekends are off. And every day I sit down, and every day, and if I only write one sentence, but this is the thing, I write one sentence at least. And then if it's a really shitty day, you write this one sentence and you go home. But sometimes you write 2 pages because you're in a flow, or you're building a table, and then it's 3 pages out of 7, but you stick to it. And that is something, just in terms of really practice, compositorial practice, I did really translate to this too. Like I open, like, I sit at the piano anyway every day. I open a score, I open my music program every day, and I work on one piece. And do something with it, and so this then obviously, if you do this every day, helps, and then not everything becomes a piece, and oftentimes you write something which you have to neglect, but everything is at the same time also then a practice, and then you get to it. So it's that is my approach, that I'm constantly surrounded by it, and that it becomes a everyday habit, and this is something which you have to defend also, because particularly if there is everyday life, and then there is this aspect, you have a job, you need to earn money, or you go here, you travel there, but say no, but you do this, and I find this is quite helpful, but also for me needed. This is how I work in a way. Yeah.
So yeah, beautiful. And in terms of, let's say, if this was to practice, do you see this as the practice? What else? How do you see the rest of it? Let's say composition. What is then composition for? If this is the practice, if there's a difference, and further on from that, what I would also like to get into is how you structure a composition. Might be on a specific work, or if you prefer in general.
Okay, we could start in general. So yeah, this is a very good. There's one thing which I find is particular and for me, and there's also like this parallel to my scientific work. Um, I work rather linearly. So also my PhD, I wrote it from page 1 to page 450, and not first this chapter and then this chapter and then go back to this chapter and so on. It was always like, finding my way through the work, and have the work also help me to decide which way it's going to go. Um, and and so far this is also true for my compositions. But there is of course not one size fits all approaches. But so at the beginning, um, this is a lot what happens. So I don't know. It's almost, this is also the question of the role. What is my role as a composer, and what is the music actually telling me? But I find sometimes it's like archaeology a little bit. So I basically sit down and just start with something, and then it finds its form. Like and for me, and then we have to talk about the different levels also of composition, like the intellectual, the algorithmic, the sonic, the physical, the emotional. And for me, so since I come from jazz, I am, and some people might really dislike this, but the ear for me in music plays a particular role. I cannot write what I cannot hear. However, that doesn't mean that I'm not really curious about experiments, to see what would that sound like, and you don't know what it sounds like, and then you work with a musician, and they're like, interesting, that not everything is set in stone before, but because in improvisation, in jazz particularly, that's what you do. You hear, and then you react. If you play with other instrumentalists in particular, you have a dialogue, you need to hear, and then you react. And I think in a way this is how I compose. I mean, my first approach to composition, I hear and react, and in that a form kind of evolves. And then there is this other aspect to me, which I find important also vis-a-vis my humanities studies with artificial intelligence, for example. So we now live in a world where we have artificial intelligence. And this is, what aspect of intelligence is it? It's like rational intelligence, right? So, and the algorithm, so that does something which is just like, rule-based, and perfectly so. And if you write a score, you basically create an algorithm, don't you? You say, if that happens, then do that, But what I find now is the special quality of being human. You don't just have like this rational intelligence, you also have emotional intelligence.
I deny everything. No, I'm joking.
Yes. So let's assume.
Not just for men.
Right. Exactly. Oh, I see. Yeah, of course.
Anyway,
Yes.
pardon.
So to me, I want to use this emotional intelligence in music. So to me, music has, like, you have to be able to hear it. Well, no, not. Well, let's talk about myself. I have to be able to hear it, while I'm composing, and I have to be able to feel it. So this emotion also is guiding me through the piece. It tells me, and this might then either be a reflection of my emotion at the time, or it might be an emotion that actually, and that's another philosophical question, is within the music itself. And then I follow this. And from this, then, because that's my way of dealing with it, to manifest it, I translate the emotion into images or narratives, maybe. So, and then I have ideas for the piece, which could be like, it's about that, or it's about that. And I have, so I hear it and I feel it, which is two qualities that are important to me. And I think, especially in the time where we live in, to pronounce this emotional aspect of things. Now, then of course, is the other side is also super interesting. Now you go into what kind of resources do I have, what kind of means do I have, how could I also push the boundaries of what is possible musically, like in terms of either, yes, okay, there's tradition, and then here's what I hear and here's what I feel, but how is what I hear and what I feel, or what other possibilities are in this, in terms of interpretation, using like extended techniques, whatever, and also maybe then further, like even, and I was very opposed to it at the beginning, but even now, like integrating electronics and whatnot. So what is 21st century possibilities in order to find a contemporary expression of music, and in order to then make it not just me who expresses myself, but to make it a real dialogue of sorts, with the music, with the performer, and also with the time I live in. And this is what I try to do in my music. But I think nevertheless. So, and then there's these two things. I think that's important, also, which I think I develop now in my compositorial practice. There's this one which is more a emotional aspect, where it's about also finding solutions or resolutions for the times we live in, not to say like create moments of whatever beauty, whatever it is, where you think, oh yeah, this is like helps me to go through this suffering, or whatever the word. And the other thing is really trying to experiment with music and come up with, intellectually, like one is more intellectually bound. Actually, it's very easy what I'm trying to say. One is more like intellectually composed music, which could be then also more like an experiment to see what comes out of it. I don't know. Let's make an experiment here. And the other thing is more emotional to really, deal with that more. And ultimately, of course, you could also combine these two aspects then in a piece.
Right. And now with this overview, because you've really painted an overview here, I feel. How would you apply or present this on a specific case? Any of your compositions? I believe probably there are also. We also get to specificities pertaining just to that composition, as well as these aspects that you were addressing now. Any piece, it's. I think any piece will offer us another level of insight here.
Yes. So there is. I think two things. So there's the very first piece, which also was premiered at Abeceda 2 years ago, which is my string trio. This Gegen das Bewusstsein, which basically
the very first piece. That's the very first piece.
That's the
That's your very first composition.
I think that's my. I would say this is my first composition. Yeah,
oh,
I would
really?
say this is. Yeah, I would think this. I mean, in terms of writing for other musicians in a contemporary music context, and not for a jazz trio or solo orchestra.
Oh, okay. The string trio.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Great.
And this is where exactly this is where I think the emotional. I've composed this, hearing and feeling, let's say, yes, and expressing a very, for me, which I don't need to describe, very particular impression life presented me at this time, and I feel like the music of the piece like could represent, let's say, my emotional state when I composed it, and also what I wanted to say, and it's a bit, if you will, dramatic in that sense, yes, and it's very about also existential in a way.
Gegen das Bewusstsein means.
The other thing is, I'm not sure. Yeah, you're still there. Okay,
Signal?
we're frozen for a second.
Yes.
Ah, yeah, back we are.
Right.
Okay.
So I was asking about the title, Gegen das Bewusstsein.
Yeah.
It means in English. How would you translate? Just for anyone that listens that doesn't understand.
It's
German.
against consciousness, or so it's something fighting consciousness,
Fighting consciousness.
or trying to press consciousness.
Okay.
And my narrative at the time has been, so if you listen to the piece, you have this, there's constantly a sting, which is produced unisono by all three instruments, and it's interrupted then by, if you will, by percussive aspects of it. And to me, this is, like if you lose it as a human person, like if you lose your identity, what we try to do is always consolidate our personality. You need your intellect, you need your emotions, you need all of this. And the world we live in, it's hard not to lose your shit, so to speak, sometimes. There's so much coming your way, and you must make sense of it in order not to lose your mind. And then also, and not only do you not need to lose your mind, you need to compose yourself, literally in a way that makes sense and that allows you to enjoy some meaning and some sense and some beauty and everything. So, and this piece is, in a way, you could see like a consciousness of sorts that constantly tries to recompose, reconsolidate, reorganize itself against these external odds. And you can quite literally in music do this by how it tries to find this harmonic, like this harmony is part of creating a sense. You make decisions, what kind of aspects are part of this harmony, and this is how and they are constantly counteracted by these external shocks, or even more so in more existentialistic. So if you lose your life, you have your consciousness together, but your body doesn't allow you to express yourself in a way that you do, like this. And this is basically what the piece, I think, metaphorically, at least for me, while I composed it, tried to express.
So it was, in a sense, a manifestation of this thought, of this, what you just said, which is almost a statement of whose, I don't know, it's like a survival, not survival, but actually life, not strategy, but how to preserve life as you see it, how to stay there, stay present, stay in the position to continue healthily.
Yes, quite, and in a very existentialistic and dramatic way. I mean, I do have also. I'm a quite melancholic person in general, and I like the darker side of things, and I find beauty in that too. It's like, so it comes to me in a way. But yeah, and to in that very existentialistic, to try to it's this piece is trying to survive, or let's say. Aspects of the piece are trying to survive, and at the same time aspects of the piece are trying to destroy, so which is an interesting paradox, which you could also translate to life, because you have both at the same time, and this is unified through music.
And since we're there, and this is a composition, as you said, recorded by Albaceda, any specific observations you have after having it performed? If you remember, it was, I think, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
for me, I mean, first of all, for me it was very interesting to see, and which I find is almost a miracle. That's thing that you think of in a chamber, or writing notes on a piece of paper, is then brought to life by humans, and they can actually identify and translate, or they must identify and translate what you have presented them, and then they bring their own thing to it, and that it works, so that it can work, or that it actually works. So for me, that was the first time to just see, okay, it is possible to translate this, and you can write it in a way that can be interpreted. But then also, of course, that the moment it is interpreted by others, it's interpreted by others. It's then not your piece anymore, which is scary and beautiful at the same time, because you give it away, and you can, everything I just told you, what my approach to the piece is, it's impossible to communicate that in the time you have, but also just generally impossible. I don't want to have a psychoanalysis like so openly as I do now on an open pen, but normally you don't, and also maybe it's not important, but of course what you want, or what I idealized, is that this emphasis of existentialism, I want now the musicians to have this very moment they perform the piece. And this is of course hard to achieve. And at the same time, does the piece still work if it's not there? So, and it works if it's not there. And so the musician, the performer, brings their own life to the piece, and their own, so of course you need to communicate, but first of all, the score must make sense. It must be playable, of course. You need to have the context to do so. But then it really becomes, it's a level of complexion there, which makes it both so good and so scary, and also then, and which I think is also the beauty of it, it becomes a performance, and it's live. It's not a book that I wrote where I craft every word. Even then, I don't know whether the people that read the book have the same thoughts I want to provoke. So this has been interesting to watch, and has been so encouraging, because I liked the way it worked, and I loved just to be there, and also to be part of this, to make this your life in a way. How absurd is it also? From my point of view, you write something, and then you go somewhere, and then there's other people, and then they turn it into music. What a beautiful way to spend your time, because there is a lot of other ways to spend your time, and they're not as beautiful, and so I thought this is like really nice, and it brought a bit, at least to me, it brought meaning to me. How beautiful is that? This is to see this circle fulfilled, from imagining something, writing something, meeting other people that say, hey, let's give it a go. And give it a go. They are perfect, talented musicians that translate this, they bring it there, that you have a nice recording in the end. Beautiful. This is a good circle. So I like this, but also it made me aware that writing music is, every time, what do I need to communicate? How can I be precise? When is it too complex? And I don't need it to be complex. When do I want it to be really complex and must insist it is that way? Where am I wrong? This problem of, if it sounds, you hear it for the first time, and then why does it sound the way it sounds? Let's say if you don't like it so much, what is the problem here?
Right.
Or if
right.
Is it written poorly? Is it because it doesn't really fit into the composition? Is it because they maybe didn't interpret it the way it could be interpreted? Is it because it's technically impossible? There's so many ifs or why things cannot work, which is something I think only experience can then ultimately solve. Experience, and you have to be a bit like just daring to say, okay, this, and radical to yourself. Also to say, well, this doesn't work. Probably not. So in that, but yeah.
But this sounds like an analysis after the performance that you do as well as a composer. That's on all these different levels of you've been mentioning before. Perhaps this is also the very rational level where you can see by the facts of performance, but at the same time also by the experience of that performance.
Yeah. Yeah. There's, one thing that just comes to mind is, this, everyone nowadays probably refers to this at one time, the myths of Sisyphus, so, the stone constantly rolling down and then you roll it up again. But what you are, I think in composition, what you are working for all the time is this moment when stone is on top of this summit, and I think, this is the moment when you have just this performance and it's great. This when the music comes together and the people come together and the environment is right, and then but it's a really, and then it rolls down. It really rolls down again, and you begin to wonder.
I thought performance is the time when it's going off the hill.
Depends.
No, Rolling Stones. It makes sense. The rock makes sense. All right. Now, just to take it a little bit also to the interdisciplinarity that you have mentioned by disposition, I guess, for you. Can you speak more to that? I guess it will be if you want to do it on a specific work, on a different work, but I'm sensing it's a big part of your practice as well, to what you've been mentioning at the beginning, the AI, your political, social studies and composition. Can you speak more to that in case of your choice?
Right. So, and this would also be then probably the second part of the question. So we have this one piece, the trio, which is the more emotional aspect we talked about, and then I'm currently working with a cellist on pieces called Episoden für Cello, so episodes for cello, and so the reaction to this AI world in which we now live, there's a twofold reaction I have. The one is, okay, I want the music to be absolutely analog. I want something which is not involved with technology at all, like not with digital technology. I want something that can be played in the woods, where you don't need a battery, you don't need light, you take out your instrument, you produce your music, because that is the beauty of it, and that is the ultimate counterpoint to the artificial intelligence. And that was my beginning. I still find this very beautiful, and I want to explore this road, because I think it's a beautiful quality to reassure our humanity and the possibility of the world we live in the analog world, that provides for all of this to happen without this kind of digital technology. And then the other hand is, okay, but I mean, it's here. And so this piece I'm working on, the cellist likes electronics, and so and then I got introduced to the world, Max MSP and all this. When you go down that loophole and they say, oh God, okay, and yet another level, and then you change frequencies and how you can change sounds, and then you have your filters. But this is, what is this? It's the world of algorithms and now physics. And this, this is also the other side of the emotional aspect of it. What can I hear? What can I feel? And then what does physics provide? How can I change my frequencies, and how can I play with that? To extend, so to speak, the possibility of the performance, and not exactly the opposite, not to negate the world we live in, but to embrace it, to at least try. And this is the more intellectual approach. So what I'm now doing is, there are two pieces now, and the first is analog, but we leave, so to speak, the realm of using the instrument through extended techniques, and I try this. How could we, evolve playing through this, and then it's more sound-based immediately. And the second thing is now, okay, using patches, as you start with little delays and so on. So you play something, and then, but ultimately I want the performer to have control over it. I want this to be started and stopped and controlled by human, which is also, by the way, principle vis-a-vis artificial intelligence. At least we have in the European Union, human control. It's human-centered. It's not the AI that becomes an actor and a power, but it's the human that still is, ethically in the center of it and should have autonomy.
So you're working according to EU regulations.
Well, if you will, only in the second. Now, yes. So you have this electronics, but the human controls it, but it still is causing a new impulse to the composition, which I now as a composer cannot foresee. It's still now, I can foresee it with classical algorithms, but now comes the third part. I'm thinking of how could you now have artificial intelligence react to the performer, or to create filters that react to what the performer does. So this is very intellectual. That's, but that just as a thought, like how could you, for example, I have now this idea, not sure if I'm going to do it, not sure if I should talk about this if I'm not going to do it, but anyway, I do it. I have this idea, Icarus, who is flying too close to the sun, and then his wings out of wax, they melt, and then because he wants to be like God and so on. If you could write a piece where you have, so to speak, filters react to dynamics. So if the performer, for example, gets too close to the sun in terms of too loud, or is not piano enough, so the moment he leaves this threshold, so the filter reacts. So you have, something distorting the piece of sorts, or that you feed something into the algorithm and or the AI, and then it reacts. It's very, conceptual for now, but I think there could be at least a momentum to experiment with that, if only in the end it reassures you of your role as the composer and the musician, because there's an interesting book, Harari, Nexus it's called, and he also writes about artificial intelligence, and he says something which is quite interesting. He says AI is becoming an actor, so which changes everything. If we just use your instrument or tools we use as humans, but if now the AI is not a tool but an actor which holds power, it has its own mind, so to speak. It's still not a human with dignity and all, but this is a change of concepts. And then the question is, okay, also what are we as humans then vis-a-vis that? And this is another aspect, maybe opens another chapter which we don't need to get into. But what is the quality then? Because AI will ultimately be better in rational intelligence. It produces the better algorithms, and it doesn't make mistakes. And you have the AI tools like Udio and whatnot, which can create like pop songs quite easily. So you have some triggers, and then it comes out, prompts, and then it comes out with something. But what is now the role we have? And then again, it's emotional intelligence. AI doesn't have emotional intelligence. AI will never be able to hear the music it produces. So then I wonder, okay, and AI also cannot make mistakes. It can be programmed wrong, or the algorithm, but it doesn't make anything. If you have AI robot hands playing a piece on the piano, it will not be able to make a mistake unless you say make a mistake. There's nothing that can go wrong. And I think the beauty, maybe I'm idealizing, I don't have solutions, it's just prompts, but of being human is you can make those mistakes, and you have this emotional intelligence, and you have your ear, and using these aspects more, and pronouncing them more so, either as solo pieces where all of this doesn't play any role, or even to say, okay, I have both these things in one music piece, and here we have, it will always be a scientific experiment, we have these two aspects, and now you watch humans and see what it does to the music or not, because there's a lot of, this is a philosophical thing, a lot of unanswered questions. And I think also the existence of AI makes philosophy interesting again, because everything had, one thought everything had been said, what does it mean to be alive, here I am, or misery, but now AI is there, and what does it mean? And it's beautiful. if overwhelming. And to technically get into it, just this is what scares me, of course. Like, now, do I have to really come up with an AI myself as a composer, or how do I deal with that? Because that means, and I would need actually to collaborate with others, because it's getting too much. Right? The understanding the music, understanding composition, understanding the instruments, understanding the performer, and then there's another layer now, understanding the electronics, now understanding the AI. It's a lot, but we have to do something every day. So,
well, my thought was, when you were not making a distinction, but speaking to contemporary versus or working with electronics versus working with acoustic instruments, one in the analog world and the first one in the contemporary world. To me, it seems that working with acoustic instruments in the contemporary world is actually also something that is of ultimate value, when everything is becoming electronical. Not everything. I'm generalizing and probably shouldn't, but I also see a really high value of the acoustic pieces today and in the future, when there might be less and less, as it's going now. I don't know. But anyway, Berlin Phil is still very much there, and I'm guessing to stay. But nevertheless, back to your case. What's now, maybe directly from where you were at, or from your practice in general, what are your expectations or aspirations, goals for the future? Where do you see you're taking the compositional practice? And this.
Well, I want to write beautiful music. I mean, I want to write, I want to, and have the chance, exactly what you said. For me, it's true. Also, it's a magical moment if humans make music. So to write pieces and have the chance to work with humans to bring this music, so to speak, to life. And for me, it's reassuring of the meaning of life also. I mean, to me, these moments are like, it's so absurd what I do with that, that I find it so unbelievably valuable and beautiful. Like you bring people together and they make this, all the things you can make in this world, also to make the world a worse place. We know what's happening. Like, there's a lot of people, dealing every day with making this world, a shitty place. That you focus on that to bring out, these moments that are just, and remain ultimately miraculous, because you will never be really able to fully understand what's happening there. But yet you can be part of this as a performer, as a listener, as a composer. You create something which you don't fully understand, and therefore are part of something greater. And this cannot happen with the algorithm. It can be part of it, but and ultimately, and I will be open towards all the roads and experimentation and so on. But for example, just now I just wrote a piece for choir, for example. We just have voices, and not even you have to translate this into instruments, but you just have. And I find this so pure. Of course, that is religious and spiritual, but of course it is, because where does it come from? Just people using their body. Sound comes out of it, and you can dive into the sound. So to try to find. I mean, that's also something we didn't talk about today. But also, like, for me, I want to create resolutions in a way. Like like on the piano, I want like moments where it's like, okay, this is just now, just a beautiful moment where you just feel, you dive into this beauty maybe of Western shaped understanding of chords and harmony, but and also leaving it, but having these moments where it's like, you know, the tip of the summit again, you know, you have rolled the stone up through all this, and then there's this moment like, thank you, because I cannot help it, but it makes me so unbelievably happy if I'm sitting at the piano and just play my resolutions and I have this nice chord, and it's just like, oh my God, thank you, you know, like I can't say it's my guilty pleasure just to sit there and have like, you know, wow, you know, so if it's a Bach chorale or something, it's like, oh my God, yes, give me this sus4, and then yes, here we go, bam, you know, and I love it so much. And why shouldn't I, you know, do it if I like it so much?
Yeah.
And I know that, you know, so this is what I wanted to, you know, create,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
be
and on
able
the other
to.
hand, I don't want to give an impression that, you know, uh, that the opposite, the work with AI, I find anything like negative. If I understand Harari's writing myself, one of his messages is also that it's good that AI can be and will be able to be a positive if we only are able to, well, first, I guess, regulate it, and second, understand all the positive uses. And I'm what you do in your work is also just considering the way I understand you today, considering all of these aspects of it, from
Yeah.
yes, political to ethical, philosophical aspects, and how human race can work with it in a positive way. What I did want to ask you is, since you have some expertise here, when you mention that today it is the rational that the AI is mastering, and if I understand you, you say what is with the irrational? Do you think that is never, or what do you think is happening with that? Is that if that never happens for artificial intelligence, then what is it? If I understand you, it's incapable of at least
Well,
composing in the way that we know as human.
right.
Just,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want to
Well,
go too far there, but just,
no.
to
Well, yeah,
hear.
but this is something which we ultimately don't know, and this is something you know, so you have always, even in science, it's impossible to come up with some truth here. There's just people that
Yeah.
have more or less convincing arguments, and then there's utopias and the dystopias, and
Yeah.
people that believe we will have general artificial intelligence in a couple of years, and others say it's never going to be possible. And so you know, at least in Europe, we have come up with, you know, right now ethical reflections upon the relationship of the AI as we know it today and humans, you know, and there it says, and that this is obviously then in the Eurocentric tradition of philosophy also, which we could, you know, criticize in the world context, but so, and then we are Enlightenment and Kant, so the dignity of the individual. Every human has a dignity and a worth in and of itself, and it's not a tool to achieve something, and it therefore can also be, you know, the holder of power. It's the individual, but the AI cannot do it. Doesn't have a dignity. It's a tool. But now here comes the problem. What happens, as some other people argue, that the AI becomes, now we have this not Homo sapiens but Homo digitalis. So what if AI is part now of the human body? And we have it to help us in our hands, in our brain. So what part, then you cannot differentiate anymore. Then, like, you know, then it is so. And if you compose, then if a human AI hybrid composes music, you know, is there a soul inside? Probably there is. Or what happens, you know, and then we are, I don't know if you're a Star Trek fan, or like, you know, Data and androids. What happens if we have the robots that, you know, it's this, you know, I don't know. Like maybe we will reconsider this position. For now, it's helpful. For now, it's helpful to say, okay, there is human, there's non-human. Harari also organic and non-organic information, so to speak. But then, I mean, this we have to, reflect the whole discourse of humanity. Let's say even the Eurocentric approach from, what is truth, God, the soul, what does it ultimately mean to be alive, and that is interesting. But I think for me, and this is a cliche sentence also, I don't know who said it, some French, like, if music starts where words end, well, that's beautiful. Like, I don't need now, music helps me to just, to again, feel how it could be. It will not give me an intellectual answer, but I will know that I produce music, even create music, produce a capitalist aspect, where you feel, where you're touched, and well, and who's to say? Of course, it will happen that there isn't a piece written by AI that touches people. Well, then what? It's fine, but I don't. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's a theoretical differentiation that's also maybe just right now a need to create meaning for oneself, because otherwise one could say, well, the AI is better, but I don't believe it.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Does not the artificial intelligence that writes a musical composition, that it's not actually just study a million of compositions by human composers and make a hybrid out of that?
Yeah, exactly. That's what's happening right now. For now, it's nothing creative in it. It's just a reorganization of stochastics. It's just putting things together, and that's what I find is important about it. That's why I said it. And it doesn't know it's writing music. It doesn't know. It's just constructing data points, and it's not listening. It cannot hear it. So
I think there was just a small cloud. I don't know if you did that or there was an algorithm in place, but there were just a small cloud with this on the screen.
Guess that's the AI agreeing to what I just said, probably.
Okay, this brings us to a conclusion. This is a cue. This is a cue. Of this really interesting conversation. I would like to conclude with two messages for which I always ask my guests, and hence. First one, for any aspiring composers, whoever, maybe it's in their 60s that someone is considering starting to compose. And the other one, and again, with having in mind you're also someone that is developing in their composition. And the second question for anyone that will hear this and go listen to your music.
Yes, sorry, I need to...
anyone that will hear this conversation and decides to take a listen of your music.
Right. Okay. So yeah, just listen to the string trio piece. I think that's a go-to thing, and then to have the really ultimate counterpoints to that. I do have also a little solo piano thing called Living Room Landscapes, which is a very romantic piano playing. So so it gives you like
with some Berlin in it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. And the thing for aspiring composers, to which I would include myself, is I think just go for it. For me, it was always, it's there, it's a possibility. It belongs to anyone really who takes the opportunity to approach it, and it's great fun. Marco Wedel,
Dr. Marco Wedel, thank you very much, and